when you start to ask people questions about, okay, like, what do you want? And once you really do a thorough introspective exploration, people find out answers, and then they start to change the direction of their life. And so I'm with you. I don't think we actually disagree, but I think that's kind of the issue, is that we're so caught up in this sort of frictionless gratification that we lose sight of what we actually care about.
Yeah. I think that it's funny because something you just said here actually wraps around to something you said close to the beginning of our conversation. Is you said one of the issues with mental health is that it seems like we're ceding control of our mental well-being to other people. And in a way, that's kind of what you just said here, that we're externalizing even our drives to other people around us. And it's so funny because I think of like, I'm borrowing a lot from like red pill stuff because that's what I've been fighting with recently. But like when these people talk about, like, you've heard about like the grind set, right?
Yeah.
Wake up at 4 a.m., take a cold shower, go, like all these like crazy things, right? And it's like, is that your drive, or have you actually like externalized that process and now somebody else is giving you a drive to be on the grind? Do you even want to be on the grind? What are you even grinding for? You're like, what do you even care about? Yeah. What were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely their drive. So I mean, I don't, I'm pulling stuff from offline conversations and stuff like that, and even clients or patients. But I think that my experience with a lot of people who espouse the philosophy, and it's not really fair if we're not, representing them accurately, so let's just acknowledge that, is that oftentimes these people they value something deep down on the inside. Like, I want to feel good about myself. I want to feel proud of myself. I want to be loved. But oftentimes, what I find in most of the red pill people I work with is like there's a decent chunk of trauma involved.
Yeah.
And then what happens is someone comes to you and says, okay, like, if you want something in life, it's been hard for you to achieve it, right? Because you've been trying really hard. And so there's almost this kind of like bias towards the harder something is, the more valuable it is.
Yeah.
And then what people do is they sell you this idea that like, oh, since you're suffering so hard, like a big problem requires a big solution. And if you are suffering really, really, really bad, something as simple as seeing a therapist for 1 hour a week for 8 months surely cannot fix your problem. You need a bigger solution to your big problem. And so you have to sacrifice everything you've got. 4 a.m., cold showers. You have to slap yourself on the nuts every single day to build up, because pain is weakness leaving the body. And if you do all of these things, you will achieve that thing that you value. Because I do see a lot of sacrifice and focus from these people. But I still think they're chasing something.
Yeah, but that the important thing is they never spend time figuring out what that something is. So like I especially look at this in relation to a lot of the advice and critiques they give of like relationship stuff, where I notice that when I listen to a lot of these red pill people, curiously, none of them talk about relationships. They might talk about like intersexual marketplace dynamics, or they might talk about like the most effective ways to hook up with people, or they might talk about like reproductive strategies or whatever. But I've never heard like a red pillar say like, if you're having a big argument with your significant other, like what's the best way to resolve the conflict where both parties, come away feeling okay. Like I've never heard a conversation like this ever. It's just like I guess it's like you said, like there's a lot of push or drive to something, but people, like, I don't even know if people know what that something is, other than being like the top 1% richest guy, like whatever the most consumerist, hyper capitalist. Yeah, God.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it correlates with, but I suspect that there's something deeper psychological about love and acceptance, because usually in the trauma that at least I've seen is oftentimes very explicitly a lack of love and acceptance.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that I don't, in a weird way, I kind of don't fault them for what you're saying, is that they don't talk about how to resolve a relationship with a significant other, because I don't think they think about their unit, and this is where we could be unfair, but my experience of listening to these people and working with these people is the fundamental unit through which you go through life is an individual, right? Because no one, as you said earlier,
you don't experience things as a class.
About you.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right, so no one is going to care about you. You have to look out for yourself. So they go through, like, life is a single player game from them. It's not a co-op game. So if you kind of think about it, you're not playing co-op with a partner. Partners are NPCs, and they dehumanize them. So you can kind of see, okay, I'm playing, like, life is a single player game, and like relationships are with NPCs.
Yeah.
And that's the way so why would I care about an NPC's feelings? It's
Yeah.
just not the way that I conceptualize life.
Yeah, I agree. For a lot of the dating advice, it feels, as a critique I have a lot, is that a lot of it feels very zero-sum and very adversarial. Like, if one side is winning, it means the other side is losing. So you've got to do your best to get one over the other person as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think the reason they feel that way is because that's been their experience. Because they used to be the NPC, which is what a beta is, right?
Sure.
And I'll be damned if I'm ever the NPC again. So I'm gonna be in control. I'm gonna get this stuff. And you know, I think the real there's a lot of good stuff, I think, in Red Pill, because they advocate for a lot of individual responsibility. I've seen a lot of people who will make like objective progress in their life, right? It's kind of weird because it's sort of like, in my opinion, kind of this maladaptive strategy where it kind of gets you out of some problems, but then kind of keeps you stuck, and then you sort of have to grow out of that. And some people do, and some people don't.
It's very hard to make people understand that maladaptive strategies are usually incredibly effective up to a point. And this is probably true of all. As a musician going through college, you can learn to play something in a bad way, but it works really well. But eventually you hit a wall where you can't improve your technique beyond a point because you're not really doing it correctly. But then the difficult thing about getting rid of a maladaptive behavior is it always requires you to regress in terms of whatever skill you're doing before you can make progress again, which makes it so difficult to move people out of maladaptive habits.
Yeah. One of my supervisors once told me that the process of growing up is discarding things that work.
Sure. That have worked up until a point, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So it's, you know, at the age of 20 or at the age of 30, it sounds like you're discovering that, hey, friction maybe isn't all that bad.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's oftentimes it's their experience of things that got them out. Right. And then the problem is that if believing in a particular philosophy helped you advance in so many objective ways, why are you going to give that philosophy up?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's always the hardest.
Oftentimes it's, if I stop doing this, then I'm going to go back to where I was, and I certainly don't want to be there.
Yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, well, fortunately or unfortunately, like any cult, any red pill, any super left wing, whatever, like everything is probably going to improve you in some way. Otherwise, nobody would join, right? Even multi-level marketing schemes are going to have people super motivated and probably picking up some kind of good habits in the beginning. So talking people down from those things, especially if people found those things because they were hurting and they were in a bad place, it's very, very, very difficult to impossible to talk somebody down from that without them going through a lot of experiences themselves to realize why it might not be the best way to go through life. Yeah. All right, bye. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.